It's Kat and I'm back because what once was will be again, and this time we're going to talk about season 6 episode 8, and in this section we're going to talk about Jaime and Brienne and the other things that happened at River Run. So first of all, Blackfish clearly chose to die in the old world instead of live in the new, because Brienne had delivered him a message that would have given him an opportunity to leave there with his forces. But he simply did not want to trust Jaime. And he didn't really trust her that much. Sure, she was with Sansa, but who was she, really? Who? But she's like, you don't understand. This is really your last chance. Are you going to take this opportunity or not? Otherwise, you sit here and die in this castle. And he says, well, we're not that many forces. I only have about 300. What good would I really do for her out there? And this is my home. And he told Jaime that he would rather die in his home. And that was really what it was about. So at the end, he does end up dying in the old world. But worst of all, because of the way that it all went down, his 300 forces might not have made much of a difference out there. But they sure as hell made no difference in the castle. Because at the end of the day, the way I said I thought the River Run siege would go, basically came true. Which is Jaime gave Edmure a deal he could not refuse. Work with me, be my inside guy, or I catapult your kid over the walls. And so Edmure was like, okay, I'm actually the rightful person, the rightful lord of River Run. And that's what he kept telling his men that, and they're like, okay, yeah, so we had to let him in. Then he says, drop the drawbridge and lay down your weapons. And in some ways, that mirrors like the number 2 way that a siege ends that I missed while I was talking about the siege of Bamberg Castle in 1455. Actually, the number one way that sieges ended in history was treachery. Simply that somebody inside the castle let down the gate or opened a postern door. That would be a back door basically to the castle, that people had the ability. They didn't just have one door. That would be suicidal. There was always a back door or 2 through which people could escape or go in and out of. And that's what would happen historically. But Edmure just went in there. He made a deal with Jaime. He was Jaime's man. So Blackfish he died in the old one. There we go. Now, what I really want to talk about, though, was Jaime and Brienne. Because there's that little scene at the end where they're waving. He's on the ramparts and he waves goodbye to her as she goes away. And she lifts her hand and waves goodbye. And some people are like, what? What the hell? What is that about? And would you just do that? Would you just let her roll away? Well, 1, what threat was she? And 2, he still felt he owed her a little something. But at the end of the day, what that was really about was that he had finally made his decision about who he was going to be and what he was going to do. And it would be totally opposite of what Brienne believed and what Brienne would do. Because all along, it's really been about these two, about being what the other person wanted to be in some respects. Jaime didn't necessarily want to be a woman. Brienne didn't necessarily want to be a guy, but she did want to be a knight. And as a woman in that time, she was denied that, regardless of the fact that she picked up a sword at 15 and started whipping everybody's ass and was better than so many others. And that she actually adopted the chivalric code as her code, the code that you're supposed to live by, the one where you give your oath to somebody and you follow it, and the one where you serve a better purpose, such as protecting the weak, defending the right, those kind of things. So in her arc, she's been doing that all along. Although, honestly, the things that she's been given to do had some very, very narrow context. She was not asked to do too much of anything that was outside of her code, or that she couldn't fit into her code. Like serving Renly Baratheon Was he necessarily the greatest king? Just on that outside surface, he was nice, he was friendly, people loved him, but would he been a good king? I mean, there was that part right in the beginning when he's sitting there and he has 100,000 forces and he hasn't moved anywhere with them. He's just sitting there with them. And Catelyn Stark points out that he's playing a damn game of king, playing the Game of Thrones, playing at the Game of Thrones. He's not playing it. Other people are out there dying while he's freaking sitting there with the biggest force ever and doing what and for what. And so you get what Brienne was serving was like an image, an idea. And that's what she's kind of been about, is serving the idea and not necessarily what are the hard choices. And those are things that Jaime actually had to deal with. But then a little later on, we see that she does have to deal with some hard choices because Catelyn Stark asked her to take him back to King's Landing and get her daughters. And that was against her son's orders and against all those guys that were there. And then while they're on the road, she defends him several times. And in one respect, she defends him against the three Stark men. And she kills the three Stark men. And he points out to her, you know those were Starks, right? She goes, I don't serve the Starks. I serve Lady Catelyn Stark. Which she sees as two different things. And so in her mind, that did not conflict with her oath or mission or loyalty or code. And Jaime was trying to figure out how you figure that out, because his whole thing has been that he's been conflicted. So she's the kind of knight he probably should have been, which was have an idea and serve the right and be on the right side and make right decisions and serve the right causes. But for his life, and she wanted to be him, she said, I dream of you. And she didn't dream of him in the romantic, necessarily sexual sense. She was dreaming of him because of being him as a knight, because that's what he got to be, a knight, just because he was a guy and he was some lord's son. And even the thing that he did to get knighted, where they routed some outlaws in a wood in the King's Grove, was that like a gigantic battle? Who were they fighting? Was that enough to be knighted? But it was, because of who he was and what he was a guy, right? So, but again, you get them talking in the tent about this whole idea. She offers him back his sword. He says, no, it's really yours. Because she's really the knight. She's the knight. Even if she can't get frickin' knighted, she's still the knight. So she never had to have that thing tap on her shoulder and make her be what she's supposed to be. She was what she's supposed to be the whole time. But he points out about the conflicts. And we see that that's the one thing that Brienne has not necessarily had to deal with, is exactly the extreme conflicts to these ideas that he had to experience. So he's serving King Ares II, who was as crazy as a Mad Hatter, and he didn't just burn Brandon Stark and Rickard Stark or strangle or kill them in a gruesome way. He had killed other people. Jaime says, you don't know what it's like to stand there and have this guy burn people, and not just these two dudes, burn people and have them tortured or throw them into prison or any of that. And I took my oath that I was supposed to guard him. But then I know I was supposed to do this thing to be on the right side, to defend the weak, protect the downtrodden. And he was like, how was I supposed to do both of those? And then on top of that, there's my family. And I'm supposed to take care of my family as well and serve serve to protect them as well. And all of these things came into conflict. But there is one respect, because the real answer there is that you can still make a decision. And what he never did, or what he continuously did, was try to ride the center line. And you can't ride the center line. He needed to have an idea and he needed to stick with it. And because he didn't, it was constantly making him do things that sometimes were for the right reason, but was bad timing, or turns out not to be the right thing to do. So everybody calls him Kingslayer, and he owns it in a way, but he's like, you don't even understand. You weren't there. So this guy was going to burn everybody, and I just was supposed to stand there. So he finally acted in the right way, but it was at such bad timing that Tywin Lannister and his army came in and sacked the city and pillaged and raped anyways and killed people. And so it took away from his whole act. It took away from his whole act. And was there something else he could have done? And maybe even sooner that would have stopped this. Instead, it got to the point where he stabs the dude and ends up breaking his oath. And then you see that again and again until we get to this last part where he's at River Run and he tells her that I love Cersei. So the thing he's chosen, the idea that he wants to serve, and that is his love for Cersei, and he will do whatever it takes to be in that love. And we always think of, if you're serving love, then that's the good thing and it's the right thing, right? But that is not always true. Because if you're serving love, this greater and higher idea, and you do rotten ass things for it, are you really serving it? And is it really love? But that's the decision that Jaime made, and Brienne is going on about her mission. And this is the true parting of their potential, the two sides of them, or they were kind of close. But now this is it. He's chosen his, she's chosen hers. Now the other thing I'm just going to say at the end that I expect that, and I said in another video that I expect Brienne will run into the brothers without banners. And Hound's going to be there. And man, I would love to see how that outcome is going to be, because she tried to freaking kill him. But he might actually, respect that more than anything else. He doesn't necessarily have to kill her or try to go back at her, because, she won it fair and square. It might have been the first time he, besides his brother, got his ass whooped. And then we're going to talk about that on the next one, because obviously it looks like Clegane Bowl's off. Boo. Maybe not. Maybe it's not boohoo, and maybe it's not off. Thank you very much. Hit the like button. Talk to you later.
Knowledge is